Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mayor's Show. I'm Mayor Emma Mulvaney-Stanek for the City of Burlington. I am the mayor, and I have a regular TV show here on Town Meeting TV to talk about city affairs, and it's budget season here in the city. We've been working really hard on our budget since at least January in order for me to deliver per charter, as the job of the mayor, a balanced budget by June to the City Council, and then they have it to deliberate on until the end of June. But I'm really pleased today to be joined by a couple of my more senior department heads to help me with this conversation today. We have CEO Catherine Schad, who is really the real brains behind and the engine behind our development of our budget every year, and her team within the Department of Finance and Administration. And also Chapin Spencer, who is our Department of Public Works Director, who has one of our biggest budgets for the general fund. Lots of complexities there around how we manage multiple funds, including a couple enterprise funds within that. So today, our conversation and our goal is to really do some good basic education on where the fiscal year 27 budget landed. You might have heard that we started with another year of a structural budget gap. It's been a chronic challenge for the city, but I am proud to say the budget we are about to walk you through is not only balanced, it is fair, and it's full of common sense solutions that actually close that budget gap and keep us moving in the right direction. So Catherine is going to help us with a series of slides to break down the main components of this budget. Hopefully by the end of this half an hour, you'll feel better educated around your city budget, how we plan to spend funds, and also how we're going to keep this city affordable and our operating expenses sustainable as we keep moving our city forward by offering core services, but making sure we do not price people out of our beautiful city. So Catherine, do you want to start us off with our budget presentation?
Yes, thank you so much, Mayor. And we will jump right in with these slides. We will start with some of the logistics. Burlington's charter requires the mayor to submit a proposed balanced budget to the City Council by June 15th. And as you know, Mayor, but for all of those watching, this is the mayor's budget, and it's something that we work hard on throughout at least 6 months, more like most of a year, to put together a budget with all of the department heads and all of the staff that reflects reality. And then the City Council has time to review it, provide any of their comments, and then they need to approve a balanced budget by June 30th. And that's because the city's fiscal year starts on July 1st. The priorities we used in building this year's budget were affordability, equity, sustainability, and also recognizing the city's commitments to both its residents and its employees.
Catherine, I'm going to add on the city commitments to residents, employees point, because it's really important. We are one of the major employers in the area. We have 4 city unions that we work with who represent the vast majority of city employees. And it's so incredibly important that we make sure we build budgets that are responsible and dedicated to our city employees. And so I'm proud to say that this budget really keeps that in mind, that we keep healthy, good cost of living adjustments in this budget to support our hardworking employees and also protect our good benefits that we offer, our health insurance, our pension. I see sometimes cities who are in a tough financial times go straight to those particular metrics within a budget and start to reduce things. And that reduces the quality not only of city jobs and public jobs that are so important to invest in, but it also takes us away from our values and commitments as a city of Burlington, which is to be a good employer who believes in livable wages and professional wages for our hardworking staff. And also at the same balance, we have working people who live here, and making sure we're delivering a budget that's affordable, that we're not overtaxing working people in Burlington and pricing people out further from our city. So I think that one's an important one to remind folks who taxpayers and folks who are watching this budgeting process to know that is a very important lens for which this budget is built upon.
I'm so glad that you said that, and it's also reiterated on this next slide where we talk about 2 of these priorities. And it's really honing in on these 2 that you just spoke about, balancing the affordability for residents. And we did ask for an increase of the property tax, specifically the police and fire tax. And that was approved by 70% of the voters on town meeting day. And I'm pleased to say that we are not increasing property taxes beyond that. And that showed a real mandate from the voters to support our public safety employees. However, we are also demonstrating our commitment to employees by both cutting $3 million of expenses from the budget, but we are not really affecting any of our essential or core services for residents, and we're not laying off any current employees. And so that is a really important highlight of this year's budget.
I'm particularly proud of that last bullet, that we were able to pull this off, to know that we still have to tighten our belts. I've been using the phrase right sizing in how we develop our budget, but we know that there's impact on employees, and we wanted to make sure we minimize that as much as possible, while also, again, continuing to build a sustainable budget we can afford. The fact that we were able to find vacant positions to have, and I don't know if you get, I didn't memorize your slides, but later on if we get into the metrics of it all, but about half of the positions that we identified that are vacant that are being cut, so cut permanently, so we have long-term savings from that, are vacant, and the other half are going to be strategically held open that are also vacant in order to get through this next year to continue to do the deeper work. And that's a reflection of a lot of hard work from Chapin, you and your colleagues. I know DPW was part of that, doing an analysis of where we could be strategic with a vacant position being open and make sure that we are seeing those cost savings.
That's right, Mayor, and really appreciated your solidarity budget approach where you looked at the various departments to do what they could. And Public Works was able to reduce our net impact on the general fund by over 15%. We are going to be down 6 FTEs, 6 employee positions. Again, no filled positions were eliminated. We are transferring a few of our employees with the shift from recycling being municipally operated to being operated by a contractor. But each department did what they could. And, you know, shout out to Parks and BCA and the good folks at Public Works who all came together and put together budgets that, again, for a second year in a row, really looked at substantial savings. And being able to achieve that goal of protecting all existing filled staff positions is a real success for all of us, because our employees are the best asset within municipal government, and we need to show them that we're committed to them and their work for us.
Exactly. And what Chapin was mentioning around solidarity budgeting, and that's a little bit of my labor background around the concepts of solidarity, which means that when we applied it to our budget last year, as it was well reported, was of a highly impactful year in our budget in a negative way, in the sense of that there was really very limited options, and we ended up having to make very difficult decisions around reducing our overall workforce in a couple of key departments that were filled. And it was very painful. There were a lot of lessons learned. We've applied those lessons to this particular fiscal year, both in understanding what work is essential, what is core, and what can we perhaps do without, but making sure we're working alongside our union leadership partners and our department heads to articulate that on the front end so we can better communicate that to all employees and departments. And then most importantly, as a group of 14, 15 or so departments within the general fund, looking at how we did last year and making sure that those less impacted by last year's cuts, meaning departments, could maybe dig a little deeper this year to provide some evenness or some equity really between these two fiscal years, so that we could truly achieve a solidarity budget.
That's right. And I am very pleased that we're at this point in the year being able to tell the employees that we have a budget and the public that's balanced, that preserves our workforce and really seeks a shared strategy, that no one stakeholder is going to bear the brunt of this. We are all, the business community, the government, the property taxpayers, we are all doing our piece to bring forward a budget that is going to help Burlington come back stronger than ever. And, for our downtown, there's really key investments that I'm excited about that I know we'll get to shortly.
Yeah. Chapin is like one of the best cheerleaders of the city of Burlington. So with that, Catherine, let's keep going.
Yes, we want to be able to get to those investments. Quickly, what to expect on your property tax bill. As you may know, the property tax bill is made up 2/3 education side, and 1/3 is made up of the municipal property tax. So this covers the municipal side. And as you can see, the note in the upper left, $353,000 is not just a number that I like. That is actually the current median assessed value for a home or condo. So half of the people in Burlington pay more than this, and half will pay less than this $3,211 as the new rate here. And then moving on to some of the exciting investments that are in this year's budget. We're starting with community safety because we know that that's something that is very interesting to people, especially because they voted for that extra 5-cent tax. This year's budget, just some of the investments, we are adding 2 new firefighters. This is a discussion that we've had with the fire union and leadership over in fire. And then we have a lot of really exciting infrastructure improvements, including more improvements to the police station, specifically heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And then something we've talked about for several budget years, which is we need to do a better job at replacing our fleet infrastructure. And you can see here, we will replace 5 police cruisers, we will get a new ambulance, and then also we will have 3 new street maintenance vehicles. We cannot get fire trucks and ambulances out in the winter without a snowplow. And also we know that people love those sidewalk tractors, and we also need a new dump truck. Anything anyone wants to add there?
So
Chapin.
does it get more exciting for municipal government when you get a new dump truck?
Well, given that our department maintains the around 240 wheeled vehicles that the city owns, people don't realize what a broad cross-section of fleet vehicles we need to keep on the road. And obviously, the fire vehicles, police cruisers are critical for emergency services, but parks vehicles, Burlington electric vehicles we maintain, the water and wastewater vehicles, and keeping all these on the road with a staff that is 7 FTEs, that has not grown in years, even though the fleet numbers have grown. We need to have newer vehicles, or else we're chasing our tail on repairs and not doing the preventative maintenance we need. So this investment not only pays off for the services you're going to receive, but it's going to enable a virtuous cycle where we can do more preventative maintenance on vehicles and not just be chasing our tail with repairs.
And as Catherine keeps walking us through investments, I think it's an important place to remind people that it would be a budget would not be responsible if it didn't include investments, including moving new money into things that we know are very critical for the city and reflect the priorities of our city, which are clearly community safety, ample affordable housing, and a commitment to climate. And you can start to see this as Catherine walks us further into the budget of how that is reflected in this year's budget, and frankly has been reflected in the other 2 budgets I have delivered as mayor around new investments that did not exist before, so we could have a more comprehensive community safety system that works, that's responsive, and is also getting the resources that we need to help keep moving us into a place where everyone feels safer in our city.
Excellent. The other investments that we will highlight today are those regarding revitalizing our downtown, and we have a lot to look forward to as we start a new fiscal year. And it's great that we have our director of DPW here, because after many, many years, we are going to complete Great Streets Main Street and the Champlain Parkway, enabling people to come downtown more easily. And CEDO is also doing a lot with our local businesses towards revitalizing downtown. Parks and Rec have done a lot to return summer concert nights to Waterfront Park. And the World Cup is coming to the U.S., and Parks and Rec and BCA will be collaborating to help give us all some exciting opportunities to celebrate that. You may have had the opportunity to enjoy what we were calling winter lights over this past winter, and we are going to expand that to illuminate Burlington, and that will happen this next winter. And then for those of you with children, we have been investing in replacing playground equipment. And over this next year, we will be replacing that in the downtown park of Smalley Park.
My kids will be so thrilled with that.
Yes.
I'm going to pause here because this is an opportunity to call in and have a question live with us on the city about the city budget. That call-in number is 802-862-3966. Again, 802-862-3966. 3966. You think I'd have that memorized by now. So feel free to call in and join the conversation. We'll keep going, but this is an opportunity to do what Burlington does best, deep engagement in how we run our city. So why don't we keep going, Catherine, while we see if anyone wants to call in.
All right. Anything either of you wants to add about the exciting things coming next year towards downtown?
Chapin, how are you feeling about these?
That's
You're
right.
gonna have, what did that? I was on a radio show this week and they said, we're going to have the smoothest roads for a while in the entire state of Vermont soon enough between Great Street, Main Streets, and Champlain Parkway.
Yes, we do have 95 miles of streets, and there are a number of streets that need repaving that are outside Champlain Parkway and Great Street's Main Street. I am pleased to say we're repaving about 3.5 miles of streets this year, and we have a five-year paving program online. So if people want to go to DPW's website and take a look at that, they're certainly welcome to. But thank you to residents who have worked with us through 3 years of construction for Main Street and the Champlain Parkway. We know it has not been easy. We're almost done. Both projects will finish in June or July. There will be celebrations for both, and they will lead to fewer water main breaks, better protection of Lake Champlain, and better mobility through the community for all modes of traffic.
I really like to think about it as two new almost boulevards, or at least conceptually boulevards, into the heart of Burlington to bring people in and out with much more ease to partake in all of our great celebrations, whether it be New Year's Eve or July 3rd or anything in between. And that coupled with the fact that we have a lot of exciting programming this summer to help reactivate our downtown as the weather gets warmer, we're going to have more opportunities for people to come and just see and experience what is the best part about Vermont in my mind, which is Burlington and our waterfront and our downtown. So it's going to be really exciting, and personal invitation for me and Catherine and Chapin is to join us on July 17th and 18th. That is going to be the celebration of Great Street, Main Streets, 2 days of just exciting celebration and great appreciation for everyone's patience as we got through this massive project.
Well said. Thank you for reminding me to talk about that celebration.
It's a team sport.
It is a team sport, and the community has worked through doing hard things together. And I think that's one thing about Burlington is we can do the hard things. Part of what made Main Street so long of a project is fixing and diverting wastewater from 30 feet below ground through the heart of our downtown, away from a stone-built ravine sewer. And that is enabling a growth in downtown of development projects that we wouldn't have been able to support. The Post Apartments is one, which is a Champlain Housing Trust project, dozens of units of affordable housing that could not have been built because it was built over top a section of this old stone ravine sewer that structurally we weren't sure could handle the new building on top of it. So together we are doing hard things. By doing Main Street, Great Streets, frankly, we were able to build more affordable housing next to it.
And Chapin, I'm going to feed you another very important point that I think is so critical that your team reminds me often about. Both of these projects are coming in on time and under budget. I'm going to say that again, on time and under budget. And like that is truly an epic amount of leadership and work. These are not easy. They're very complex, big construction projects, as Chapin was outlining. But it's really going to unlock some key housing and economic development opportunities for our community. And when we talk about strategic investments and having that reflected in our city budget, this is exactly what we're talking about.
Thank you.
Excellent. One of the things we want to talk about is this budget did have a $10 to $12 million structural budget gap. But as Chapin and the mayor were discussing, in order to close that gap, we really took a shared solidarity budgeting approach, and we asked everyone to do their part. And we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about that. On this slide, you'll see we really wanted to recognize and say thank you to everyone, especially those 70% of voters who agreed to the tax increase for the police and fire tax. And you can see here that raises $3 million for the budget. And you can see here where that money has gone to. Both the fire department and the police department budgets have increased over last year. And then in addition to property taxpayers, we're asking visitors and those who can afford to eat out to continue to pay a 2.5% meals and alcohol tax. That is sometimes also called the gross receipts tax. And that raises nearly $1 million for the budget. And a couple of points of clarification. This is a rate that has been in effect for almost 2 years, so we're not asking for a change, although this rate was 2% for many years, and we increased it to 2.5%, as I mentioned, a couple of years ago. That rate is set to sunset, but the mayor and I are strongly recommending that we keep this rate the same. Because the effect is quite small. This is an important revenue stream for the city, and it's something that you'll see as a tiny add-on to your receipt. If you go out to eat, get a cup of coffee, for instance, I went to lunch and got a sandwich and a cup of coffee. The bill was $18, and the effect of that tax was an extra 10 cents to my bill. And so, even if you are going to go out and have a really nice night on the town and you are going to spend $100, the effect of this extra 0.5% is only 50 cents. So we think that this is an important way to raise $1 million from some of our visitors and others who are visiting our wonderful city.
And I'll just add, because we have a little bit more to say before we wrap up the show today, this is not only a tax rate that has been in place for almost 2 years, as Catherine said. We've been using that revenue very strategically to support our downtown and our business community. So when we've been able to make adjustments to the Great Street, Main Streets development project to keep it open during sort of the deeper, darker times during the winter, to make sure traffic could flow as soon as humanly possible safely around that construction site. Or another example is the increased foot patrol and the redeployment of police officers into the downtown, which started last spring, or even supplementing the cost of having state police to help supplement our limited officer headcount downtown. These are all funds that go into our general operating revenues for the city that allows us to do that kind of work, as well as all the types of downtown programming we've also been talking about. So it's a real investment we need to keep doing. And also, I think at this point, where we were in 2024 when we started with adding that 0.5%, the economy, the politics on a federal level, the politics on an international level were dramatically different. And part of good leadership is making sure that we are making decisions in the times that we're living in today and offering a fair and balanced way to balance this that really shares this fairly across all the sectors who can help us raise revenue, and not placing it only on the tax increase to residents, because that is a fast way to make this city even less affordable than it is now. And that is not something that I was willing to do as a mayor. I think a fair and balanced approach of how we raise revenue is the smart way to go.
Thank you. And let's get to who else is doing their part. City employees are doing their part. As we mentioned, we are either eliminating completely or holding open for this next year 27 city positions. All of them are vacant, but that's saving over $2 million. Additionally, city employees have scrubbed all of their budgets to find all possible savings from operational expenses. That means not employee positions, things like office supplies, costs for communications, phones, trainings, things like that. And the last one I'll mention is everyone who owes the city money, whether that might be in overdue property taxes, parking tickets, building permits. We are undergoing several kind of parallel concerted efforts to make sure that we are collecting to the extent possible on all of that money. And that brings us to a bit of a conclusion here. The mayor's FY27 budget is balanced and responsible. I think we've shown you that it does sustain the city's core services while strategically reducing operating expenses to the tune of $3 million. And that gets us closer to a sustainable, affordable budget for Burlington's residents.
Great. Catherine, thank you for your leadership on this. Chapin, as one of our longer serving department heads, your leadership of working alongside your colleagues. The slides we shared today will be up on a dedicated budget page, likely either on Catherine's department website or probably the mayor's webpage within the city webpage, larger webpage. So if you want to go back and reference any of the information we shared, you can find it there. The piece I just want to say is that when we come back to this structural budget gap that we talked about at the front of this presentation and show today, we're still not through it. We still haven't completely solved it. But in these 3 budgets that I've delivered since being mayor, every year we get closer to narrowing the gap, and actually are narrowing the gap. And this year, if you look back in March, Catherine and I did a presentation on the status of that budget gap and where we can project a day when we start to actually have it be closed, where we are raising enough revenue in a year and also keeping our expenses to a reasonable growth rate where we don't have such a sizable gap. We've developed a lot of good knowledge about our budget over these last now 3 cycles that are applying some really common sense solutions that we will keep using so we can get to that day sooner rather than later, probably in the next 2 to 3 years, to really be able to have a much more sustainable budget, one that doesn't require such difficult decisions year after year. And that, again, reflects all of the hard, not only work of department heads, but this cycle shows a lot of ideas from rank and file employees as well as good participation on new ideas. We didn't get into the voluntary furlough, for example, but we put a lot of solutions out and we asked for feedback early from our city employees, but also their ideas, because it is so important, and a lot of the best ideas, no offense, comes from the rank and file who are doing the work of the city on the front lines. And you will see a lot of those particular ideas reflected in this year's budget. So are there any closing thoughts as we wrap up here today around the budget? Also just your reflections as being long time serving department heads around budgeting processes and where you think this budget lands us, or just any reflections at all before we wrap.
You want to go ahead?
I'll just say that having been working as director for 12, 13 years, the general fund, which is the budget that we're talking about here, has historically been the most challenged budget to balance year after year. And it is really the budget that affords the core services. And the fact that this administration has been able to put together a balanced budget that protects our filled union and non-union positions in the city and protects core services, I think it's a real accomplishment. There are other budgets out there to learn about too. So if you go to the link below, you can learn about the city's enterprise budgets, which include some of DPW's water and wastewater budgets, our parking and traffic budgets, but also other departments such as the airport, Burlington Electric, and others.
Excellent. Good plug for that. I'll say, having had the pleasure of being the city's CAO through COVID, I am excited and pleased to see that this budget really does get us back to a sustainable place. One thing we didn't mention, it uses almost no one-time money. For many years, we were really reliant on federal funds, and so I'm pleased that we didn't have to cut any current employees, and we are able to offer, as you said at the beginning, Mayor, good cost of living adjustments and benefits for people, and also to try and maintain affordability for residents.
Really is a team sport to do this. So thank you, both of you, again, for being on the show. Thank you for watching. And as you have questions, feel free to reach out to my office or to your city councilors who will be receiving this budget on behalf of my administration on May 18th. And then we anticipate making their decision around June 15th, although they do have until June 30th to adopt a balanced budget for the city of Burlington. And with that, thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time.